Coming up on Arirang News, South Korea reports a surge in cases of COVID-19, more than 100 in a single day. Officials are calling on religious leaders not to hold gatherings, which have been the source of many of the infections. Around a third of South Korea's doctors are on strike, forcing tens of thousands of hospitals and clinics to close for the day. They're opposed to the government's plan to train more doctors to address what it says is a shortage. And South Korea's export prices were down in July due to a sharp decline in semiconductor prices. Exports had fetched higher prices in the 2 months before. It's 5 p.m. here in Seoul. Thank you for tuning in to Arirang News. I'm Devin Whiting. South Korea has reported its highest number of coronavirus cases since late March, more than 100 today. The highest number was in Gyeonggi-do province, which surrounds the capital. The provincial governor has decided to ban religious groups from holding small gatherings outside their main services, which have been the source of many of these infections. Han Sung-woo has the latest.
South Korea sees 103 new COVID-19 cases on Friday. Excluding the high number of cases from a chartered flight from Iraq 3 weeks ago, this marks the highest number of cases in a single day since late March. Many of the cases came from cluster infections in churches, marketplaces, and schools. These new cases have forced the country's health authorities to consider raising the social distancing level to level 2.
We have discussed the possible option of raising social distancing during an emergency meeting held by the Prime Minister. However, the requirement for level 2 has not been fully met yet.
Of Friday's new infections, 85 were local, with 72 of these coming from the Seoul metropolitan area. Due to these growing numbers, some local governments are now under pressure. To stop the further spread of COVID-19, Gyeonggi-do Province Governor Lee Jae-myung has restricted local religious gatherings for 2 weeks. Outside Gyeonggi-do Province, 31 cases were reported in Seoul and 3 in Incheon. There were 18 imported COVID-19 cases. There were no additional deaths reported on Friday, with the total death count still standing at 305. Han Sung-woo, Arirang News.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un says the North has suffered heavy damage from flooding, but because of the risk of bringing in the coronavirus, his regime is not going to accept any foreign aid. At a high-level meeting of the Workers' Party of Korea on Thursday, Kim was talking about ways to recover from the flooding and to guarantee the safety of the North Korean people. In Seoul, the Unification Ministry says, however, that it's still going to try to send resources to help. The North's state media says the floods have inundated around 390 square kilometers of farmland, more than 16,000 homes, and 630 public buildings. Tens of thousands of doctors in South Korea have gone on a 24-hour strike in protest against the government's proposals for healthcare reform, including plans to train more doctors. According to the health ministry, as of noon on Friday, more than 30% of the country's roughly 33,000 hospitals and clinics have had to close for the day. At 3 o'clock this afternoon, the doctors started holding rallies in several locations around the country, the main one at Yeouido Park in Seoul. The government's posted a list of institutions that are open on the Health Ministry's website and the emergency medical portal eGen. Doctors who work in vital departments, including intensive care and emergency rooms, are working as normal. President Moon Jae-in has vowed to restore the dignity and honor of the Korean women who were sexually enslaved by Japan during World War II, stressing the importance of a victim-centered solution. He was speaking earlier today in a video message to mark International Memorial Day for Comfort Women.
정부는 할머니들의 용기와 헌신이 존엄과 명예를 회복하는 것으로 보답받을 수 있도록 현실적이고 실현 가능한 방안을 마련하기 위해 최선의 노력을 다해 나갈 것입니다. 문제 해결의 가장 중요한 원칙은 피해자 중심주의입니다. 정부는 할머니들이 괜찮다라고 하실 때까지 할머니들이 수용할 수 있는 해법을 찾을 것입니다.
An event was held in Cheonan, the third of its kind since the government designated August 14th as a National Memorial Day in 2017. President Moon thanked the victims for their courage in coming forward, calling them living history and praising their fight for women's rights and peace. He also noted that on this day 29 years ago, the late Kim Hak-sun, who was herself victimized by the Japanese military, became the first to testify publicly about Japan operating an organized system of military brothels. President Moon vowed to take care of the 17 Korean women still living who are registered with the government as sex slavery victims. The president said they have presented a new direction for future generations of South Koreans and Japanese to pursue peace and human rights. President Moon has named 9 new vice minister level officials in a wide-ranging reshuffle. There's a new vice foreign minister, that's Choi Jong-gun, who's been serving in a key Blue House post as the Secretary for Peace Planning at the National Security Office. The Blue House says Choi was chosen for his experience on the diplomatic front, especially on Seoul-Washington alliance and inter-Korean affairs. Moon has also nominated a new Minister of Government Legislation, the current Vice Minister Lee Gang-seop. The other new Vice Minister-level officials will be serving at agencies including the Ministry of Public Administration and Security and the Ministry for Maritime Affairs and Fisheries. The Blue House says it hopes this will bring new energy to the latter 2 years of the Moon administration. The U.S. Justice Department has accused Yale University of illegally discriminating against white and Asian American applicants in its undergraduate admissions process. In a statement on Thursday, the Justice Department said the university violates federal civil rights law because of an alleged bias based on race and national origin. Asian American and white people have 1/10 to 1/4 the chance of being admitted compared to African Americans with similar academic credentials. It threatened to sue the school by the end of the month if those policies aren't changed. This comes after a 2-year investigation in response to a complaint by Asian American groups. Yale said it categorically denies claims of discrimination and will not change its admissions process. South Korea's import and export prices both fell in July from the month before. They had been rising for the 2 months prior to that. According to the Bank of Korea, import prices in July fell 0.9% on month, mostly due to lower prices for chemical products. A weakening dollar offset a rise in oil prices. The price of Dubai crude, South Korea's benchmark, was around $43 a barrel last month, up 6.1% on month. As for export prices, they were down 0.4% on month, with a decline in the prices of semiconductors and computers. Time now for an in-depth look at the market news on this Friday, and for that I'm joined on the line by Mr. Daniel Yu, Global Strategist at Yuanta Securities. Mr. Yu, thank you for making time today.
Thank you for having me today.
Well, stocks in New York were mixed overnight. Lots of uncertainty still about the next stimulus package. What's the story in the global markets?
Yes, the Wall Street closed mixed on Thursday, with the tech sector showing slight gains as the COVID-19 resurgence fears abate, but policy uncertainty continues. On the macro side, if you look at the initial jobless claims, it came in actually better than expected. U.S. showed a total of 963,000 jobless claims, which is well below estimation of 1.1 million and dropping to below 1 million for the first time since March. On the policy side, the White House Economic Advisor Larry Kudlow said that stimulus talks were at a stalemate and there's no signs of actual agreement happening anytime soon. So this is clearly putting some pressure to the U.S. market as well as the global overall market. Also, the European stocks fell from the 3 weeks highs on Thursday, with the DAX 30 closing at 12,994, below 13,000 level. And there's a continuation of concern about the tariff dispute between the U.S. and Europe. And we are seeing oil price decline as well. Washington announced that it would remain 15% tariff on Airbus aircraft and 25% tariff on a range of European goods, including wine and whiskeys and other things. So clearly there's an uncertainty regarding the global economy, and that is affecting the high level of equity prices at this point in time. Clearly, we need some additional boosting measures or any type of positive news coming through in order for the market to go up further. And it seems that is affecting most of the equity market on global scale.
Well, that uncertainty was felt here in Korea, where stocks were down by quite a bit today, breaking an impressive 9-session winning streak on the Kospi. What happened there?
Right, as you said, Kospi is down by 1.23%. Kosdaq is down by 2.31%. One of the negative news that coming out from Korea is that the COVID-19 new patient rose to three-digit number, well above 100 people today. So clearly, there's a worry about the continuation of the COVID-19 issues. Also, as you know, Kospi as well as Kosdaq have shown a very strong movement in the past 5 months. Kosdaq being the highest rate of rise from the bottom of the COVID-19 incident of the March. And the Kospi has said there's been consecutive rise in prices, and that has been the case, but we need some kind of breather, given the fact that it is well above the before COVID-19 index level. Also, some of the news coming from China is kind of putting some pressure for Korea. Chinese retail sales number came in at unexpectedly falling by about 1.1% year on year. As you know, the Korea's dependency on China is very high, and therefore, if there's any negative news coming from China, does affect negatively. However, though, in terms of the correction, we don't think that it's going to be anything significant because we do think that the economic recovery is in a right track. Just question mark is how strong the recovery will happen. And that's why we're taking some breather in terms of the price movement at this point in time.
Well, we see now that South Korea's export prices were down last month, the first decline in 3 months. They'd been rising in May and June. What caused the decline, and what stands out to you here?
Right, as you said, South Korea's export prices fell for the first time in 3 months in July due to weaker semiconductor cost. The country's export prices index in terms of local currency dropped by about 0.4% in July from the previous month. And once again, clearly the biggest losses that we are seeing is the international price of DRAM and flash memory chips. And that dipped by about 6.4% and 5.2% on the month of July. So that is definitely putting some negative pressure for overall economy as well as the share price movement of Korean equity market. The overall DRAM dependency, the flash memory chip dependency for Korea is very high. And if that price is falling to the current level of that speed, this will be clearly negative news. However, though, we don't think that the price decline is going to affect the overall export number that much because we are expecting from the third quarter to the fourth quarter stronger demand side of the volume because we do think that the overall DRAM demand is rising due to data centers and other pickup in terms of economic growth rate in global economies. Clearly from the China as well as U.S., demand for DRAM and the NAND will be rising, and therefore that should have positive implications in terms of the overall export amount. However, the price falling is definitely a negative news for the time being. We need to watch that carefully in terms of how much price falling versus how much volume increase we're seeing in the future.
Got it. All right, Mr. Yu, thanks so much for coming on today, and have a great weekend.
You too. Thank you very much.
Museums and art galleries in Korea have had to scale down their operations over the last few months because of the pandemic. To get people to come back, the country's culture ministry has launched the 2020 Museum Week. Choi Won-jong went and filed this report.
The Ministry of Culture, Sports and Tourism announced 2020 Museum Week on Thursday to get people visiting the nation's museums again. The ministry is urging visitors to join both online and offline events. It says this 10-day event will not only feature diversity and inclusion, but also will help people enjoy cultural activities during the pandemic.
The creation of digital viewing exhibitions and the strict quarantine measures in place have greatly helped Koreans safely resume cultural activities.
Also during the event, they point out these big LED screens on the wall. And one of the artists who made them said he hopes they will cheer up people who got the corona blues.
Many exhibitions are actually displayed within a limited platform. I thought they can be interpreted differently by using a digital platform. I think our society is currently in this depressing state, but I hope this digital exhibition can bring some healing, hope, and comfort for people who are affected by COVID-19.
Along with these media artists who recreate Korea's traditional culture on the screen, other artists who co-create the media art Fantastic History decide to use the LED screens so people can view the artwork even at the different times of the day. The media art exhibition outside Gwanghwamun Gate share different cultural features from around the world and can brighten people's mood. The government is giving discounts of up to 40% of tickets to help people to get into museums so they can get over their corona blues. 최원정, Arirang News.
And that does it for this newscast. Thank you for watching.
With the ongoing shift in consumer preferences and the COVID-19 outbreak, the subscription service economy